Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, where we break down the latest and greatest World Cup action. Here to relive Tunisia's mighty win over France with me is Joseph Tomlinson and our Sky Sports colleague, Ali. How are you for starters?
I'm great.
Making your debut.
My debut on Football Daily, I can't wait.
An absolute pleasure
So
to have
almost
you
fake
on.
excitement.
It is a little bit fake.
Well, regardless of how excited Ali is, the Tunisian fans will be absolutely buzzing with that historic win over France. France have lost a World Cup game for the group stage game, that is, for the first time since 2010. And despite Deschamps making huge changes, nine changes in fact, and using all 5 subs in the game, we did not expect a lacklustre performance like that. Tunisia claiming their first World Cup win of this edition with their first goal, by the way. Wabi Kadri.
Wabi.
Of Sunderland fame.
Bald Wabi.
Yeah, congratulations to him. Let's put some shine on Tunisia before we batter France and Denmark then, because they were very competitive in this game. And who do you want to sound out as your winner? I know you want to talk about Tunisia in general as well, don't you, Ali?
Kadri.
Wabi. Big bald Wabi.
I mean, I just think when you look at him, he's 31. He's had a really good time in the World Cups when he plays Tunisia in these tournaments. And I think just the goal that he got, it was coming, and we felt it coming, didn't we?
What a finish as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little toe bong. I love it when it's a scrappy goal that wins you the tie as well. I mean, Tunisia not great in World Cup qualification when it came to scoring, only 11, which paled in comparison to a lot of the bigger sides. But Kadri, that's 25 goals now in 74 caps. So a very decent return from him. He is their talisman. It was his third goal at World Cups. So really good.
Yeah, and can we put some shine
Really
on
good
James
stuff
Wayne?
from him.
Can we put some shine on
Go
James
on,
Wayne?
mate.
James Wayne from Football Daily had a bet before the game. He had 1-0 Tunisia, Wabi Kadri goal scorer. I mean, yeah, that is some effort. Shame you only,
50p as
shame
well.
You only put 50p on it.
There we go. I mean,
Coward,
Wabi Kadri scored at the World Cup, but James Wayne, our very own James
the
Wayne,
biggest winner
is
of the
the
day.
real winner. You also wanted to put some shine on Laduni as well in central midfield, didn't you, Ali? Because, I mean, he is a bulldog, isn't he? Some people have been calling him the Tunisian Scott Brown. That was me while I was watching it. But have you got some of his numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when you just got to look at his stats from the games, 8 ball recoveries, 3 tackles, interceptions, and 3 chances created. And I think, you know, obviously it wasn't France's best team they've put out there, but I think they can go home happy. Along with it, like Australia, they won anyway. So Tunisia, even if they did beat against France, they wouldn't have gone through anyway. And I think they were very lucky to be in the World Cup anyway after, you know, the shocker of an own goal from Mali in their World Cup qualifications. And I think when you support a team as amazing as England, like we know, I just think it's so easy for us to just put teams like Tunisia to the back of our head and not actually appreciate that they haven't got this golden generation that so many teams have. They haven't. Mbappe is worth 3 times probably how much their whole squad is worth. So, yeah, I think Tunisia fans should be very happy.
Yeah, they can go home with their heads held high. They've been competitive in every single fixture, haven't they? And my boy Laduni, he won't be at Ferencvaros for very long after these sort of performances. Ange Postecoglou getting to Celtic.
This stinks of a player who's had a good World Cup, 3 good games, and actually not convinced he can put it together across the course of a season because of one chest-beating tackle against Christian Eriksen.
And I've absolutely fallen for it. No, a very good 90 minutes against the likes of Chouameni as well. He did shine in this game. Shout out to Elias Skiri as well, just pure industry. He's been great for Colne, by the way, as well over the last however many seasons. And I also want to put some shine on Konate because despite France losing and a bunch of the rotation options not taking their opportunity in this game, which we're going to get onto in just a second, he was very, very good in this game. A 99% pass accuracy from 73 passes, 5 tackles, 4 clearances, 5 recoveries, and 3 out of 3 long balls complete. And I think he covered Camavinga extremely well, who of course started in an unorthodox left-back position, asking an awful lot of him. But we'll maybe get onto that next. Joseph, let's move on to losers then. And we do have a special interest in France, don't we, as they are on England's side of the draw.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of those players that came in there maybe. And what I wanted to ask you was, is their depth, you know, which people perceived as very, very strong, is it quite as strong as maybe you first thought, having witnessed some of these boys in action?
I think in certain areas of the side, it's definitely still as strong as you would expect. I still think in the midfield, you know, the option to play Camavinga at left back because it was so stacked in midfield that Vertu came in, Guendouzi came in, Tchouaméni maintained his place. In the wide areas, I still think they're super chock with talent. You know, Ousmane Dembele, Kylian Mbappe, Kingsley Coman available to them as well. So I think in certain positions, centre-back as well. You mentioned Ibrahima Konate then. How good has Dayot Upamecano been at this World Cup? And when you've got a player like Rafa Varane, who's the natural leader in this side, to play in there too, there's plenty of depth. But there are weaknesses in this squad, as there are with every international squad. And I still think it's probably the second best squad at the World Cup behind Brazil. You know, I saw people on Twitter saying yesterday that England's depth is better than France's. I don't necessarily agree, and I don't think that just because they lost against Tunisia when they made 9 changes, playing Camavinga at left back, doing all this mad stuff, we should start saying the depth is not there for France, because there are still extremely talented players.
Yeah, I think there's a bit more to that argument with Benzema and Nkunku dropping out now, right? And Mawani starting up front.
I think if Giroud was to get injured, then you would start to think that. I certainly think if Giroud was to get injured, because, you know, Griezmann has found that role and has made it his own so quickly that if you then had to ask him to play through the middle, or Mbappe to play through the middle, to allow a player to come in out wide and Kingsley Coman comes in, you just lose the balance of the front line a little bit. But I still think in terms of personnel, the depth is absolutely fine there for France. There's so many ridiculously talented players.
Do you think they've got a solid back four though that they could?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think France's backup centre-backs probably start for England, which shows how deep their squad is.
But I think it's so overrated in the sense that you can see that there's gaps in the back four. They're conceding. They conceded against Denmark. They conceded against Australia. They conceded against Tunisia.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't the same as second team, but there are still gaps there.
Yeah, no, there's definitely problems, and I don't think they are the perfect 11 right now, but I think what they're doing is effectively coasting through the group at this stage. If that game today was, you know, meant anything, I think France would have blown Tunisia out the water, quite frankly.
Obviously meant a lot to Tunisia.
Of course,
in terms of
for the way France finished that group, they knew they could go in there and lose. It made no difference. It gives them the ability to rest players up for a potential clash against a team like Argentina if they don't beat Poland this afternoon.
I mean, Deschamps did use all 5 substitutes, so he obviously didn't want to lose that game come the end, and he did throw the kitchen sink at it. But I understand what both of you are saying. I think it's probably not a defensive personnel issue, more so the cover they're getting in front of them. In this game, I thought Vertu was poor, I thought Fofana was poor, Tchouaméni was kind of holding it all together, and the fact that he didn't change Tchouaméni out, I think says a lot about his standing in the squad right now and how important he is to the balance, to use a word that you just referenced.
Other options in there, have they really? In that defensive midfield role.
So if something happens to Tchouaméni...
Problems.
Big problems as well. So I know you could say this about most squads, but I think we've put France on a pedestal in the lead up to this tournament, right? And kind of made them out to be almost invincible.
I think you could say it about every other squad except Brazil. Like if Brazil, you know, Casemiro gets injured, Fabinho comes in, we've seen Neymar.
They've dealt with Neymar already.
Neymar get injured, people come in, the forward line is so stacked, it's ridiculous. The fullbacks are kind of bit of this, bit of that. It doesn't really matter if it's Alex Telles that plays there or not. Do you know what I mean? So I think that in terms of Brazil's depth, even at goalkeeper, you know, Alisson drops out, Ederson comes in, it's pretty much flawless. Whereas every other team has 1 or 2 players that if they dropped out, you think would be a catastrophic mess. Like England, if Kane was to get injured, or Declan Rice was to get injured, Spain, if Pedro or Gavi were to pick up problems, I think that would significantly alter them. Whereas Brazil, fine. So I don't have a massive problem with France's depth. I think it's been a bit overplayed.
Maybe for England, from a mental aspect, maybe France seem a little more surmountable after a performance like that, which is great for us. By the by, France have now used 24 players at the 2022 World Cup. That's the most a team have ever used in World Cup history. Of course, this being the first World Cup where you can take 26 people with you. So that stat not being that impressive. But everyone has got minutes. But like I said earlier, I don't think people that are rotated in this game really staked their claim to start further on down the line. I thought Camavinga tried his best at left back. I know 10 tackles and interceptions, by the by, which was a match high. So he was very busy. They clearly targeted him, didn't they? And like I said, Konate did covering well. Guendouzi at the tip of that diamond, that's not happening again. That was terrible, wasn't it? I don't think Coman seized his opportunity at all. Ousmane Dembele eventually coming on as well. He's pretty much nailed on down that right-hand side. Is there anyone else you want to stick the boot into before we move on to Australia? Denmark.
Can we start sticking the boot into Denmark, who had as the dark horses of the tournament and have been an absolute disgraceful embarrassment throughout?
Joe's taking this personally. I'm going to give you the floor now.
I mean, what are we talking about here? I think Denmark a lot of people had Denmark potentially topping the group over France, beat them twice in the Nations League, looked extremely exciting, had progressed significantly since the Euros, in which they were fantastic, went to the semi-finals, easily could have beaten England on the day if it hadn't gone to extra time and Harry Kane scored the follow-up to those penalty. I just think they've absolutely embarrassed themselves. The squad was so deep. It's an absolute golden generation. The centre-backs are stunningly good. The midfield's really, really solid. Maybe, yes, they're missing a striker, but dearie me, to finish bottom of this group below Australia and Tunisia, that is humiliating. Hjumland in the mud, the coach. Hype job.
Absolutely harrowing. His stock has plummeted. Matthew Leckie's stock. Bang, what a goal in this game, by the way. It was his only shot, one goal. Love that. One key pass from him as well, and just put a real shift from a target man perspective. 6 out of 9 aerial duels won.
Can we talk about Australian Suter?
Of course we can.
I mean,
what a guy.
He's not going to be in the Championship much longer, is he? Let's be frank. I mean, this is a guy who snapped his ACL 2021, end of 2021. He only made his first comeback game start November. And now he's World Cup round of 16ist.
So can you see him in the Prem?
I can see him in the Prem.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, he's at Stoke at the moment, isn't he? So he's only 24. I think there's absolutely options after performances like this that teams will be interested in January. Stunningly good yet again, and quite frankly, for Australia to get out of this group is ridiculous.
Yeah, I love it.
It's so ridiculous.
Joe peddling Australian players at the end of this. Big fan of it. Get more Australian players in the Premier League is the long and short of this episode. Let's move on. Let's move back, to France then, because like I said at the start of the show, they obviously are on England's side of the draw. Should England be fearful of France then?
I mean,
what do you think, Ali?
I think you touched on it before. I think you've got to also realise that this is no disrespect to Tunisia and to Australia and to Denmark, but this wasn't the hardest group that they've been in. And I think, there's going to be a real test of actually their talent when they go through and play a bit more stronger teams. I think right now, is this the best that France can get? Is this the best that we've seen France be? Whereas I feel like England, we're just starting off, and I feel like there are other teams like that. Why are you smirking at that?
I'm not.
We're at an interesting tipping point, aren't we? Because England's the positivity after the Wales result, like this, negativity for France after the Tunisia result.
Is it that
maybe
bad
I should have said as fearful of France as maybe we would have been at the start of the tournament, because I think everyone looked at how the composition of how the tournament was flowing, and people were like, oh, England could get France in the quarterfinal, that's game over for England. But do we feel like that now?
If we've got Kyle Walker, in my opinion, with the pace of him, he can match Mbappe, and I think that is where I think Southgate has to start Kyle Walker with his pace against him. I don't think anyone can, Trent and Trippier, I don't really think can go up against him. But it all depends they are so good going forward, France are, and we just...
I mean, the game did change somewhat when Griezmann came on, and we have been saying Griezmann's been France's best player throughout this tournament. There we have them, the Kyle Walker, the antidote to the Mbappe venom.
He is.
Same question to you then. Are you as fearful of them right now?
I'm more fearful than when the tournament started.
Oh no!
Before the tournament started, I actually thought they'd finish second in the group. I was a bit suspect about this France team, especially following the Pogba injury, the Kante injury, carrying Benzema injury, the Nkunku injury. I was thinking, this could cause a bit of problems behind the scenes. We know that France have been a bit rocky behind the scenes in the past, but I think they've looked stunningly good. I don't even think this Tunisia result is even a blip for them. I think they are
very generous.
I think they're a stunningly good team. I think with Mbappe in there, they can just blow anyone away in this tournament. I really do. I think anybody can get blown away by this France team, and I think England should be extremely worried about meeting them in the quarterfinals. I wish it had played out the way I'd played it out, that they went on to the other side of the draw and finished second, and we got the Danes or the Australians or whatever in the quarterfinals, because I think we'll significantly struggle against France.
Okay, there we have it. What do you lot at home think? Hit us up in the comments below, and we'll get back to you in the first hour. Like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll see you on Euro Football Daily for an Argentina versus Poland run.
Come on, Poland! Knock him out!
Come on, Szczesny.